What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. Today, as you can see from the title screen, I'm going to be uploading my updated top 25 poll heading into week 3. So you're going to see some new additions in this poll, lots of movement in this poll as well as the college football landscape is starting to take shape. Again, though, we still have a lot to learn about the teams that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Some surprises, some disappointments. We're going to talk about it all here in this video. But first off, huge thanks to those of you that have subscribed already. We just reached 400 not too long ago. If you want to be one of the first 500, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down there. You can also leave a like, share the video, leave a comment down below. Those are all great ways to support the channel. Again, I know I'm not a college football expert, but I do try my best with my current situation. Again, college student, focusing on classes, social life, things like that. But I like sitting down recording videos for you guys. College football is one of my biggest passions. Have a lot of fun with it. We have a lot of fun here, or try to at least, right? So let's go ahead now and get into my top 25 poll. We're going to start talking about teams that dropped out. So USC, after that beatdown against Stanford, dropped out. They were ranked number 13. Texas, after they looked like the lesser team in that game against Arkansas, who you see on the screen at number 21, dropped out. They were ranked 15th. And then Utah was ranked 24th. Of course, lost to an unranked BYU. BYU now moves into the top 25 poll at number 25. And that's where we're going to start here after we talk about the first 6 out. So again, Utah, USC, Texas, I feel like are close enough to get into the top 25 poll that when you drop them out, they're not that far off. Indiana's still there. TCU is still there. And Michigan is there as well. You can even throw Michigan State on that list as well. And some other group of 5 teams that I think you could throw on that list: Tulane, Fresno State, Nevada, App State, all teams that I feel like you can justify putting in your top 25. Not going to argue with you. This is just my personal opinion of the college football landscape right now. BYU is here at number 25. And when I picked BYU in the preseason to beat Utah, I got a lot of flack from that. I got a lot of comments saying there's no way that's going to happen. What are you talking about? You don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. That may be true in some sense, but I am going to give myself a little pat on the back now. I didn't pick the game right when it mattered. True. But when you look back, again, that was just kind of me evening out records, getting the teams to what I thought their record was going to be this year. And for Utah, I thought it was 9-3. For BYU, it was 7-5. So again, just worked out that I had that matchup the way I had it. But for this BYU team, I think they can only go up from here. They've proven, even without Zach Wilson, they're still a good team. It was a shaky performance week 1 against Arizona, but week 2, they came out, played a really good game against a really good Utah team, and I don't think Utah's done either. I think Utah's got a lot of potential as well. But BYU just barely beat out Michigan for that number 25 spot. Again, Michigan beat a Washington team that I still feel like is, again, a good team in the Pac-12. The only difference is Utah was ranked, Washington was not. So BYU in at number 25. 24 is Auburn. I don't think we've learned that much about Auburn yet, but I had to put them in the poll here because they've been really dominant in the 2 wins that they've had over 2, again, lesser opponents. But we're going to learn a lot about Auburn this week. They get a showdown with Penn State. It's where College Game Day is going, and it's the whiteout game as well. It was odd to me that Penn State chose to do the whiteout game with a non-conference opponent, but not totally unheard of. But and who knows, maybe they'll have 2 whiteout games this year. Who knows? But for Auburn, this is the team that I feel like has a lot of potential with Brian Harsin as the head coach. I think Bo Nix is being overlooked as a pretty solid quarterback right now. Again, not as great as he was hyped up to be coming in as a freshman, but still has some good weapons around him. Tank Bigsby running the football really well. Auburn overall, they have a hard schedule left. So we're going to learn a lot about this team over the next coming weeks, but have to put them in the poll here. They've proven that they belong. UCF moved up 2 spots. Last week I had them at 25th. Now they're at 23rd. And I'm kind of genuinely surprised that UCF is not ranked in the AP or the USA Today coaches poll up to this point. Just kind of a thing that I noticed that I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Wonder why that is. again, voters have different opinions than me. If it was me, I would have UCF rated at 23rd. They've looked like one of the better group of 5 teams. They've proven it. They've showed it. UCF can play with the bigger dogs. Again, going to find out a lot about this team when they get to play Cincinnati, Tulane, Memphis, teams like that. So UCF, I think, can only go up from here as well. Miami coming in at number 22. I don't know what to do about this Miami team right now because they struggled against Alabama, which, of course, everyone saw coming. And then I saw people say, oh, well, Miami's a joke. Miami shouldn't even be rated in the top 25. How are they rated 13 coming into that game? The talent that's on this Miami roster is not bad talent. And then when you look at this last game against App State, I still think it's way too early to hit the panic button on any one team. Maybe there are a couple of exceptions that I won't mention in this video, but I do feel like it's too early to hit the panic button on any one team yet. Miami's got a pretty interesting game with Michigan State coming up, so we'll see what happens there in that one. I might preview that one. My preview is going to be on Thursday, again, of my 10 games I'm most excited for. For Miami, again, let's see how they play this week against a Michigan State Spartans team that I think has looked better than what I had first predicted for sure. Arkansas comes in at number 21, and for the Razorbacks, it's a team that, well, looked like the better of 2 teams in that game against Texas. I mean, really did look like the better team, and we knew this team was going to be underrated coming into this year. I feel like they're a little bit more underrated than what they've shown, right? Or that kind of got phrased weird, right? I feel like Arkansas can still be a better team than what they've shown, but their offense played well. Their defense played really well. Special teams even played well for Arkansas. I think sky's the limit for this team. Again, got a lot of hard games coming up. We'll see what happens with the Razorbacks. All right, moving now into the top 20. Arizona State and Ole Miss move up together 3 spots from 23rd and 22nd to 20th and 19th. With Arizona State, they got an interesting game with BYU coming up. They beat UNLV last week. So for Arizona State, a team coming in to the season that, again, I liked Arizona State. I love Jaden Daniels. He's put out some good product onto the field this year so far. Let's see if it continues. They got to go on the road, play BYU. And for Ole Miss, they have a game this week that I feel like is going to fly under the radar. They get to play Tulane. So that game, I really do think is going to be flying under the radar. Tulane is a team that I've been genuinely surprised about, and I think most of the country has been genuinely surprised about. Going to learn a lot about both of those teams, but this Ole Miss defense has looked a lot better than a lot of people thought it was going to look. So for Ole Miss, coming in here at number 19. Coming in at 18 is Coastal Carolina. And for Coastal Carolina, they've continued to look like one of the best group of 5 teams out there. And in my opinion right now should be the favorites to win the Sun Belt. Because Louisiana just hasn't looked as good as I thought they were going to look this year. Again, it's still early in the season. There's still time to prove themselves. But for Coastal Carolina, hey, they beat Kansas for the 3rd year in a row. The rest of the schedule is kind of soft. So there's not really a whole lot of opportunities for them to prove themselves until they get into conference play, when they get to play some more interesting teams like App State, among others. So Chanticleers, good win last weekend. They move up in the poll. Virginia Tech kind of shot up in the poll as well, though, up up 4 spots from 21 to 17, because I've continued to be impressed with this Virginia Tech team. The question that I was asking last week after they beat North Carolina was, okay, but can they sustain it? Can they do it again? And I saw some improvement from that game against North Carolina. As crazy as it might sound, I think they played a little bit better of a game against Middle Tennessee than they did North Carolina. Again, just from what I watched of both of those games. I watched the majority of that game. I thought the North Carolina offense looked flat in that Virginia Tech game as well, but huge credit to the Virginia Tech defense, and I saw it only get better in this week's game against Middle Tennessee. Interesting matchup coming up with West Virginia. Again, that question still remains. Can Virginia Tech stabilize it? Can they keep it going? Can they continue to do what they've done? That question will be answered this week. UCLA, they got another game that's going to fly under the radar. They got to play Fresno State, and Fresno State has looked good. And they took Oregon down to the wire. Of course, we saw what Oregon just did to Ohio State. Talk about both those teams here once we get into the higher-ranked teams. But UCLA comes in at 16. They move up 2 spots. I can't move them as high as the AP and USA Today poll have them for two reasons. One, they didn't play last week, so they can't really make any huge moves because I feel like if you don't play, you can't really make that major of a move. So kind of perplexed me to see the AP poll move them up to 13, but I can kind of understand it. UCLA has played really well up to this point, but for the Bruins as well, I'm not quite ready to hit that they're a top 15 team button yet. I want to see how this game against Fresno State goes. Maybe I move them up next week. For right now, though, they are going to sit at 16. Again, a package move up here. Wisconsin and North Carolina, as we get into the top 15, are 14 and 15. For North Carolina, they looked so much better in that game against Georgia State. Granted, it's Georgia State, but still, they looked so much better. Sam Howell looked like a Heisman-winning quarterback. And again, I feel like just like Miami, people hit the panic button way too early on this North Carolina team. Guys, it's 2 games into the season. A lot can happen down the stretch. There's only room to get better for every single one of the teams that we've seen play on the football field thus far and that are in my top 25 poll. For every team in the nation, there's only room to get better. For North Carolina, I think that rings especially true. Some interesting games left on the schedule for them. Again, that game against Miami still looming. Wisconsin, again, up to number 14. I've seen people say that Wisconsin doesn't deserve to be in the top 25. I've seen say that they don't deserve to be in the top half of the nation nationally ranked, which, again, hitting the panic button too early here. Their offense is not good. Their offense looked shaky against Penn State, yes, but it got a lot better in this game against Eastern Michigan that they just played last weekend, albeit there's still a lot that they can improve on. But again, Ches Malusi looks like a good running back for them. Graham Mertz, I have yet to see him improve to the level that I want to see him play at, to the level that I feel like would be good enough for Wisconsin to win the West Division, especially with the way another team in the West has been playing that we'll talk about in a bit. But for Wisconsin, got to keep them in the top 25 poll. Their defense is going to win them some games. It's just a question of, can their offense pull out those closer games? How much does their offense improve down the stretch? That's something to keep an eye on for the Badgers. For the Cyclones of Iowa State, this is not the team that we thought they were going to be coming into this season. Iowa State was a team that I really liked coming in to this year. Again, I know, only 2 games of the season. Listen to yourself. Listen to what you just said. It's only 2 games through the season, but Iowa State not showing that they're the team that we thought they could be, especially offensively. I thought their defense, I think their defense has played well through the first 2 games. But that offense needs some work to do, right? It needs some cleaning up. Brock Purdy hasn't played the best. In fact, he even got pulled in that game against Iowa. Again, hasn't played the best. We'll see what happens with the Cyclones. For Florida, they got an interesting game coming up, right? Number 1 team in the nation, Alabama, visits their home turf. Who's going to be the starting quarterback for Florida? Will it be Anthony Richardson? Will it be Emory Jones? They move up 2 spots because other teams that were ahead of them dropped. So that's why they move up 2 spots. But I always thought Florida was going to be a little bit better off than people initially gave them credit for in the offseason. But this Florida team has got to make some major improvements very quickly if they're going to want to have a shot to beat Alabama. And who starts at quarterback? Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. Notre Dame comes in at number 11. Struggled with Toledo, but I think Toledo is a really solid team. Again, Notre Dame drops because other people ahead of them passed. I feel like this Notre Dame team can play better. They've played 2 very close games, and if they're going to be one of those teams in which every game they play in is close, they could end up losing a lot more games than expected because they have a lot of tough games left on the schedule. Fighting Irish barely miss the top 10. Getting in here now to the actual top 10. The Ohio State Buckeyes fell from number 3 to number 7 after a dreadful defensive performance against Oregon. Granted, Oregon it was a much underrated team coming into that game. They looked like the much better team. And Ohio State, as much as it pains me to say it, they did deserve to lose that game. The defense has a lot of improvements to make, but I see some people saying Ohio State's season is over. They blew it. That was their shot. Losing to Oregon is not all bad, especially if Oregon ends up running the table, winning the Pac-12, which I absolutely think is a possibility. For Ohio State, though, you need to see that defense improve. CJ Stroud's got to get a little bit more consistent when throwing the football. Overall, though, I still think this offense is one of the best in in the nation. Defensively, yes, there is a lot to work on, but they got a couple games coming up to where they can adjust and make adjustments and try out some new things. Tulsa and Akron are the next teams up on Ohio State's schedule. We'll see what improvements the Buckeyes make before Big Ten play. Penn State, really impressive win over Ball State. So a couple impressive wins already for Penn State. That jumped them ahead of the Buckeyes for me. I feel like they have a more complete team as of right now through the first 2 weeks. Top 10 team in my mind. They get Auburn this week. And then in a couple more weeks, possible top 10 showdown against the Iowa Hawkeyes. So we'll see what happens there with the Nittany Lions. Really good team, I think, up to this year so far. They've exceeded my expectations for sure. See what happens there with the Nittany Lions. All right, Texas A&M coming in next year at number 8. They didn't move from last week's poll. They avoided an upset bid against Colorado. I thought Colorado came out, played pretty well, but the offense under Zach Calzada looked slow. Now, with Haynes King fracturing his ankle, going to be out for at least until mid-October, which means, yes, possibly misses that game against Alabama too. We'll see what improvements this offense makes with Zach Calzada at the helm. Overall, I thought the defense played pretty solid in that game. Offense has got to make some adjustments down the stretch if they want to win some of these big games. Clemson and Cincinnati each drop a spot from last week's poll, but again, just because other teams moved up. Cincinnati has a huge game this week on the road against Indiana. Clemson, again, I still think their offense can play better. We're going to learn a lot about Cincinnati this week. And for Clemson, you need to win the rest of your games dominantly if you want to get back into that playoff conversation. They're still there. Of course, it's Clemson. They're going to be in the conversation. But again, maybe need some help. Getting into the top 5 now. If you thought that this was going to be the top 5 at any point of the season, props to you. But I don't think anyone saw this coming. So Bama and Georgia, of course, number 1, number 2. Going to leave them alone. Bama beat Mercer. Yeah, looked like Bama. Have a game against Florida coming up this week. Interesting one there. Georgia beat a really good UAB team by 49 points without their starting quarterback in JT Daniels. So Georgia's offense showed out in that game against, again, a pretty good UAB team who has a good defense. So Georgia, Alabama, clearly the top 2 teams in the nation. And then when you fill in the rest of the top 5, it goes as follows. Oklahoma sitting here at number 3. Again, really dominant win against West Carolina. They got Nebraska coming up next. I don't think many people are going to expect them to lose that game. In fact, I don't know anyone that's going to pick Nebraska to win that game. But it's going to be a telltale sign for Oklahoma and for Nebraska on how well they play in that game. Oregon comes in here at number 4 because, wow, what a huge win that was in the horseshoe against Ohio State. Again, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I was sad to see it happen. As an Ohio State fan, glad that the loss came earlier rather than later, but you have to give props to Oregon. That was an absolutely phenomenal display of just skill, talent, and utter dominance on the road in a tough environment. For the Ducks too, they've made themselves a huge player in the playoff conversation. This team is loaded. This team was severely underrated after that game against Fresno State, to where, they struggled with Fresno State. Weird. They're going to get blown out by Ohio State. I thought they would have got blown out too, but not because Oregon's a bad team, because I thought Ohio State would play better. But Oregon came in with an excellent game plan. They executed it to perfection, and they walk away with one of the biggest wins of the college football season so far. They're up to number 4 in my poll, and Iowa up to number 5 in my poll as well. By the way, Oregon moved up 7 spots. Iowa moved up 5 after breaking the top 10 last week. They break the top 5 this week. Now, they got some, quote, lesser than opponents in the next coming weeks with Colorado State and Kent State coming up. But overall, this Iowa team, I don't think is going to go anywhere. But I do think this Iowa team has got some work to do, not on the defensive side. That defense has looked astonishing throughout their first 2 games. Not a lot of concern there. Offensively, only 187 total yards against Iowa State, and they won the game. So that is a huge credit to their defense, and I think Iowa's defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. But what happens when Iowa gets to an explosive offense, like, say, in Alabama, Georgia, maybe even in Ohio State, if they can get things figured out, maybe even a Penn State, if their offense gets better as well. Iowa might have some struggles, and I don't know that their offense is going to be able to keep up. I want to see this Iowa offense get better before I'm able to truly say, okay, this team is a huge player. I think they're already a huge player in the playoff up to this point. But I want to see that Hawkeye offense get better but there's a lot of potential left on that team. That's going to do it. I'll leave you guys on the top 5 screen. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Also, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. The next video I will be uploading on Thursday is my week 3 preview and predictions of my top 10 biggest games of the week. I'll see you all later on. Goodbye.